Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Happy Monday. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host, and Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Mindset Monday, which is an opportunity for you, me, and my guests to talk about whatever it is we want to talk about. April is Autism Awareness Month. And so I have three lovely ladies that are going to come on and talk to us about autism. All of them are African American mothers whose children all are on the autism spectrum. And so I am super excited and delighted to have them here with us. And so I can't wait to introduce them to you. But before we do that, I want to hear from you. We are live on Facebook, live on YouTube, and on the Greater Works Network on RokuTV. So tag a friend and let them know they should be here. This is an interactive live, and we fully expect to hear from you. Your comments, your questions are very much so welcome. So before I bring them on, I'm going to give a couple of shouts out. I see my cousin Denise, who is on here. Cousin Denise, I'm telling you, if nobody is on here, Denise is going to be on here. All right. She is from Texas. And so I appreciate your energy and your support always. I really, really do. So autism is something that we have talked about on the show. In fact, one of our guests, Miss Vonetta Blakely, has been on twice with us to talk around autism, but we are going to dive in a little deeper today, especially since all of our panel has lived experience as caretakers, as parents of children that have autism. And so we'll hear about some of their experiences, which have been quite fascinating to me. And hopefully it will help you in some way. Maybe, if you have a similar lived experience, either having autism or you have a loved one that has autism, or maybe you know of someone who does that, may benefit from this. So I see Carmen Madison on. Thank you for being here. And also Miss Tanisha is on here as well. Thank you for being here. So, folks are going to be joining us shortly, but I'm going to go ahead and get started by reading our guest bio. So, our first guest is Miss Vonetta Blakely. She is a master's level independently licensed clinical social worker in North Carolina and South Carolina, who has dedicated her life's works to helping individuals and families whose lives have been impacted by autism, developmental disabilities, and learning differences. Her work is inspired by the appreciation of the differences in all of us. Vonetta is the founder of Rooted Therapeutic Services, based in Charlotte, North Carolina, providing inclusive and culturally informed clinical services to a diverse set of families and individuals. She is also a certified autism specialist and an LGBTQ plus ally who has received Safe Zone training by the LGBTQ Center, both at UNC Charlotte and UNC Chapel Hill, and has had the opportunity to work for and be trained by the UNC Teach Autism program as a human services practitioner. We're going to have her tell us all about her daughter in just a moment. But y'all help me welcome Miss Vonetta Blakely.
Good evening, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me.
Yvonne, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. All right. Next is actually a classmate, a FAMU classmate of mine, Miss Millicent Williams. Millicent is a career public servant. She resides in Portland, Oregon, and is the proud mother of one 24-year-old son, Ethan. Ethan was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome in his early childhood. Since that time, Millicent has sought to devise strategies and introduce solutions to ensure that her son and the children of so many parents struggling with being classified as other abled mature into becoming independent, contributing members of society. She is the founder and head chief for Ethan's Compassion Kitchen and producer of Ethan's storytelling YouTube channel, Spectrum Storytime with Ethan. Y'all help me welcome Miss Millicent Williams.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me here today.
My
It's an
pleasure.
honor.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. And then, last but not least, Millicent actually connected me with this lovely lady, Miss Carla Moultrie. She is a sister, wife, mother, professional, encourager, author, and autism advocate. Professionally, she is contract management professional with over 15 years of contract management experience. Currently, she is pursuing her master's of business administration at the prestigious Terry College of Business at the University of Georgia. And her life changed in the summer of 2015 when she began to notice changes in her toddler daughter, Camille. She and her husband, Nathaniel, began to seek evaluations for their daughter and was told twice that there was nothing wrong. Eventually, an evaluation would confirm their suspicions, which is that she had a disorder, a sensory processing disorder. And so she and Nathaniel learned that she was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And as a parent advocate for autism, for children with autism, she connects other parents to resources, education, and support through the many experiences she and her husband have compiled navigating as parents with special needs children. Her hope is that the Awesome Girl series will aid children and adults with becoming more empathetic and understanding their peers and understanding their peers that may be different from them and how they can support them. She believes that God has divinely allowed her to live this journey of being Camille's mommy. Oh, that's so special. She loves sharing with others how autism has its challenges, yet it has many strengths and superpowers. Additionally, her hope is that those that live with autism and other neurological differences will be embraced and will have more spaces created that will include them. Help me welcome Miss Carla Moultrie. Welcome,
Thank you.
Carla.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicole.
My pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure. So we have a few more folks on the live. I want to definitely just acknowledge them quickly before we dive into our conversation. I see my sister Shayla from South Florida. Thank you for being here. She is also an educator. So I know this is probably going to be a topic especially of interest to her. I see Mr. Zachary Richardson on here. I see Narkisha Peterson, big Narisha Peterson, big sister of Carla Moultrie. All right. My mom is in the house. Thank you for being here. I see Benicia is on here. A whole bunch of folks are chiming in. Letitia Baker from Mariana, thank you for being here. So appreciate you all. So I think this is definitely going to be a robust conversation. But before we dive in, I just want you all to like quickly tell us in the order in which I introduced you a little bit about yourself more, not what you do, but who you are and about your child with autism. So Vonetta, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I am a mother also a wife, a sister, friend, so many different hats that I wear, but one of the most important ones is being a mother to my daughter, Maya, who is now 18 years old, who also has autism. And Maya was born in 2004. We thought we were having a baby with no medical concerns, no issues at all, but quickly learned that that was not the case. So we were blessed to have a wonderful medical team around us to educate us, to inform us, to set us on the right path of having medical testing done for her. And over the years, as things kind of went along and Maya matured, both my husband and I started to notice some gaps in development. The older that she got, that gap seemed to get bigger and bigger. And then in my professional work, also started to notice some things that aligned with autism. So we decided to take her to a place in Chapel Hill to have a comprehensive test done that did determine that Maya does have autism. And she is in the percentage of people with autism who also have an intellectual and developmental disability. So she has blessed us in many, many ways. And I think I can relate to Carla and feeling divinely chosen to be her mom and to also make a difference in the lives of others.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Millicent, I know your bio did talk about Ethan, but if you could just share a little bit more about him.
Sure. So again, thank you for having me on the show today. I really appreciate it. I'm always excited about having the opportunity to share from my experience in hopes that someone might be able to either identify opportunities to perhaps change course, provide a safer or a safe space for their child or children, and to create the opportunity for others to learn from them. And so I was I am no longer married, but when my ex-husband and I were early in our marriage, we identified once Ethan was born that there were some delays in his speech and some of his motor skills. So, you know, simple things like being able to ride a tricycle or scoot yourself along. And then certainly that he wasn't talking much or at all, even as he reached older toddlerhood, 2, 3 years old. And we recognized that there was likely something happening. We did take him to a series of doctors for assessments. And frankly, we became frustrated because the diagnosis at the time, and I share this, that I think although autism is not necessarily new, nor is it old, there was a lot to learn about the spectrum. And so his initial diagnosis was OHINOS, which stands for other health impaired, not otherwise specified. And so I said, well, I could have told you that. I don't know what it is either. But we were able to continue to find opportunities for assessments. We lived in the Washington, D.C. area, and there were a number of professionals who did a lot of assessments to try to determine and pinpoint what the challenges were between Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C., Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. We continue to seek out specialists who would be able to help us to find a way to best serve our child. And so over the course of those years, especially because the speech was limited, we had to find ways to help him to talk. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, I'm sure, as we progress through the show. But we identified that he would watch television and he would echo the things that he was hearing. And those were the first times when he would say whole sentences. Otherwise, he was just making sounds, la, 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 la. You know, he'd start a sentence and then he would just trail off into sounds. And so, you know, that was frustrating, but we learned how to help him to pull language out, and began to use those things as ways that we could help him to express himself, because we also saw that he was frustrated because teachers couldn't understand him, his peers couldn't understand him. So there were a number of strategies to include incorporating sports into his day, all types of music lessons. And we finally landed on a few things that really helped him to gain confidence and thereby independence and the ability to connect. But even in all of that, we still recognized that there was some neurological delay, some developmental delay there. And while he was able to keep pace with other students, it was a daily struggle. You know, everything he learned in school, we had to reteach when he got home, and our days were long. But we did what we needed to do. And we had a really supportive community of family and friends who also knew that we all needed to do what we needed to do. And if I have anything to share, it is, you know, try to find a community. Make sure that people know what's happening so that they can be supportive of you instead of scared of what's happening. Once folks know, then they can be the arms that, or the help to prop up your arms when you're tired, because you're going to get really tired. But it's been a blessing. Ethan has made me a better person. I'm certainly, I believe, a better mother because of the way that I've had to make sure that I was patient and help to create resilience within him to be able to, like I said, be a productive citizen, productive part of community. So excited about his next steps.
Nice. Thank you for sharing all of that. I like that. Try to find your community. I think finding your tribe is very important. And as you have stated, they can help lift up your arms when your arms are tired. So very important. All right, Miss Carla, tell us about Camille.
Okay. Well, as you all know, you heard a little bit about me. I too am a wife. I'm a mother. But one of my greatest accomplishments and what I'm most proud of is being Camille's mom. Camille is 9 years old. She was born September the 9th, 2013. She actually came 10 weeks early. I literally went in for an 8-month checkup, and they told me my blood pressure was so high they couldn't find it. Sent me to the hospital and induced labor. Camille came weighing 3 pounds and 1 ounce. She quickly began gaining weight. So, I didn't see any issues. Matter of fact, most milestones, she was achieving milestones ahead of time as she began to grow and develop. And then right around about 21 months, we noticed that she just stopped trying to communicate. We started noticing she was really withdrawn. We literally had just moved from New Jersey to Atlanta. And I would take her to daycare, and I would literally watch her on the camera. The daycare had a camera where I could watch her throughout the day, and I would observe that she was often withdrawn and she wasn't really interacting with the other children. So and this went on for about a week and a half. And then my husband said, I don't really see Camille trying to communicate anymore. I don't really think she's trying to talk anymore, because she had a few words. She didn't have a lot, but she had a few words. And I just automatically assumed it was, new environment, separation anxiety, new school. That's what I initially thought. And my husband kept saying, no, she's not really communicating. And then probably a couple of weeks later, the director of the daycare mentioned, she said, I think you should get her evaluated. And I was very nervous about it. So I immediately the next day, I found an organization that could evaluate her. We went and had her evaluated. And initially they told me she did not have autism. They just said, "Oh, don't worry about it. She's by then she was almost 2. They said she's not 2 yet. Maybe she's just gonna speak late. You know, some children don't start off talking this early." So they told me not to worry about it. So we kept observing the next couple months. Um, we noticed she was still withdrawn, still just crying all the time, no words, nothing's coming out. So we went for a second evaluation. Once again, we were told she didn't have autism, and that it was, she's just going to speak late, don't worry about it, she's okay. And at that point, I wasn't confident in what they were telling me. So we got her evaluated with the Marcus Autism Center here in Atlanta, and they came back with the diagnosis of autism. After 3 evaluations, we finally got the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder right before her 3rd birthday. And that startled me because I was hoping that it wasn't autism. I was hoping what the first 2 said were right. She'll just speak late. But, it was obviously devastating to get that diagnosis. And in getting that diagnosis after 3 evaluations, I learned that females are typically less diagnosed than males, and African American females are even less likely to get diagnosed at a later time. So it startled me, and for a minute I was really nervous. I was just trying to do all the therapies and do whatever was necessary to help Camille. And for the first, it just felt like we were just not making any headway. It was just like she just really wasn't interested in the therapies. We were just doing them just to do them, and it was a challenge. And then by the time she turned 4, she began to try to communicate. She wasn't speaking in full sentences, but I would hear her just say random words. And I'll never forget being in Target, and we went to the Pizza Hut inside the Target, and she just said pizza. And I never heard her say pizza or anything really in context. And I started jumping and shouting right there in the Target. And so I figured, okay, so she has words, and she was getting speech therapy, and her speech therapist shared with me. She said, "Oh, she has a lot of words in her vocabulary. We just have to work with her to, to get them out and get some sentences flowing." So we began, then we began, a greater journey with speech therapy, a lot of different therapies, music therapies, like some of our other ladies have said she goes to music therapy every week. And music is something she really likes. She can sing. Most times when we hear her use full sentences, it's through music. So now we're working at 9 years old, we're working to try to get full sentences in context. Occasionally we'll get a 3-4 word sentence, but we're not getting them consistently. So we're on that journey. And I'm excited because I've seen so much growth and development since she's gotten her diagnosis. I mean, we were told we may never hear her speak. We may never hear her say, "I love you." The things that a lot of people take for granted, we were told we probably would never hear or experience, but she's defying the odds. She can say, "I love you." She tells you good morning, good night. She does a lot of the things that typical kids do. And I'm hopeful, and I have faith that she's going to do even greater things. So as Millicent said, she has caused me to be a better person. She's caused me to learn a lot of patience that I didn't know I had. And I'm excited when I meet other families that are starting this journey, to tell them, I know what we've experienced, and I see how far we've come, and I'm expecting those same outcomes with other parents.
Awesome. I'm just so fascinated in hearing all of your stories about your children and just your journeys. So I want to acknowledge some of the folks that are in the comments. I see Marjorie is here. Thank you for being here. And we have Miss Maya on with us as well, and Natalie Simmons. And I'm not sure who Ladybug is, but hey. And Johnny Johnson is on, my question asker, and he wants to know, how old is your daughter, Carla?
Camille is 9 years old.
Mm-hmm. And so, Carla, I don't think we mentioned it, but you wrote a book.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about the book.
Last year, I released my first children's book. It's entitled Awesome Girl. I took a play on your Clark Kent is Superman. Well, Camille Moultrie is Awesome Girl. Um, as I have shared with so many people, one of the things that when we tend to talk about autism, a lot of times we focus on the challenges that people with autism live with, the speech delays, the meltdowns, the sensory issues. And while those things are real and that they are a part of a lot of persons that live with autism, a lot of persons with autism often have a lot of strengths that we don't know about or even talk about, because a lot of times they're overlooked based on just the challenges. So I wanted to write a book to help teach children and adults what some of the things that people with autism sometimes live with, in particular girls. As I stated earlier, girls are typically diagnosed at a lesser rate than males. So I wanted to highlight that. I wanted to highlight the strengths that girls a lot of times have. And the book is Awesome Girl. And here it is. Here is my pride.
Yay!
Awesome Girl, and she's a superhero. As I said, Camille Moultrie is Clark Kent, and Awesome Girl is to Superman. And when we talk about the challenges that she has and that so many children with autism have, but it also talks about the strengths. And I was really surprised at the response that it has received. I've literally been contacted from people all over the world, school districts ordering bulk copies, to teach children about autism and how children that live with autism are different. And my main thing for writing the book was seeing how a lot of children would ask questions when I would be out with my daughter. They would ask questions like, well, why is she jumping? Or they would be pointing, Mommy, why is she jumping? Or why is she putting her hands over her ears? And, I didn't think the children were being mean or rude. I just think I thought they didn't know. So I figured, we've got to help these children understand. I mean, and they won't understand if they're never taught. And I believe my daughter, being a 9-year-old, she's 9 years old with autism. She will be an adult that lives with autism. She will have autism for the rest of her life. And I believe that if we begin teaching children now what it is like for their peers who live with autism and other disabilities, it could be cerebral palsy or Down syndrome. If we begin to teach children now what it is like for their peers who are different from them, if we begin teaching them now, they can begin to have empathy and compassion and love for those people, because they're going to be adults who work in special needs. Some of the children that are in elementary school now, they're going to work with children. They're going to be nurses and doctors and therapists. So why not start teaching them now? And I believe if we teach children now, if we start now, we can change an entire generation and have more acceptance and inclusion. And that's my belief. That's part of the reason why I believe God divinely allowed me to be Camille's mom, because I'm going to tell the world, every place I go. I take copies of the book with me everywhere, in the airport, everywhere. I leave copies everywhere, hoping someone will just pick it up and read it. So that's what I do.
I love it. That's awesome. And I think that you're right. If we have this conversation going such that we can change the mindset on this Mindset Monday about autism, it will have an impact on Camille as she continues to grow and mature, right? And others that are on the spectrum. So we are right at about halfway through the show. So I do want to take a moment for those who may be just joining us, just do my little station ID break. And that is just to let you all know we are on with Vonetta Blakely, a clinician out of Charlotte, North Carolina, Miss Carla Moultrie, the author of Awesome Girl, and Miss Millicent Williams. All three of these ladies have children that have autism or are on the autism spectrum. And we've been talking just a little bit about their awesome lives as parents with children on the autism spectrum. So Hopefully, some of what you've heard thus far has inspired you or intrigued you. I mean, some of the things that have been said thus far about finding your tribe and having empathy and compassion, like those things are touching me right now as I'm just reflecting on our conversation thus far. So I'm so just, again, excited and delighted to have these ladies on with me tonight. I see Diva Locke has just joined us. Thank you for being here. So, ladies, if you could just share, and you have a little bit about how this experience has changed you, and maybe talk some about your previous experience with a loved one with autism prior to your child being diagnosed, if that was the case at all.
I think if I go back, if you're asking if I have like known someone with autism before.
Mhm.
So what's interesting about that is if I really sit and think about it, like as a child in elementary school or growing up, and knowing of peers who were in the special education class, um, it's like I knew that there was something happening, but just being so young and innocent and naive, I guess, there was never any question in my mind. Like I would know that this person is in the special education class, that they are a little bit different or they learn differently from the way that I learn, but never in a negative context. And so when I think about what Carla and Millicent say about finding your tribe and teaching others about autism or Down syndrome or other diagnoses that exist, especially if we can impact children. For them, they just grow up with it being the norm, like a person is just different and not
Mhm.
necessarily in a bad way, just different, as all of us are different in various ways. Family wise, I don't know that there's anyone else in my family before my daughter who was diagnosed with autism. And one of the interesting facts about myself is like I always like need to know the why, like why.
Mhm.
So one of the many lessons that I have learned is that I don't always have to know the why. Um,
Mm.
and when Maya was born, she had some genetic differences after some tests were done. And so we had some fantastic doctors, and the doctors were willing to do like genetic tests on both me and Mark because I needed, in my mind, to get to like the bottom of this, like to have the answers to why. And when the doctor came back and said, Vonetta, is just an anomaly, like it's just one of those things that happens. There's no real answer as to why this happened. We just know that it is. So after that, getting that from him just like straight is what I needed to hear. So I think for me that was helpful. And from that point on, just accepting Maya for who she is and her development that took place at her own pace, and all of the growth charts and developmental charts and all those things I just learned to toss.
Mm.
Take my child for where she is and was.
Okay. Very good. Carla, Millicent?
Um, well, I didn't, like Vonetta, I didn't have any other family members who had children with or who were living with a developmental delay or disorder or other disability. But again, had a number of people who were very supportive of the journey that we were on. And even in the schools, and we made every effort to make sure that we had Ethan in mainstream environments to the extent that that was possible. The children were incredibly kind, and the teachers were very supportive. And I know that that's unique, but I also know that Ethan is unique in that he, while on the spectrum, does not present in the way that a lot of children who are on the spectrum presented. And so there is the stimming. He does do certain things with his hands. He does move a lot. But, you know, I can give him cues and he can self-regulate. But you know, he's incredibly social, and a lot of children on the spectrum are not. He does not have any problem with going up and speaking to people, and introducing himself and talking about his interests. And that is, to borrow the name of a TV show that comes on one of the networks, Atypical. He loves life, and is really compassionate. And it's that compassion that I draw from all the time. So I talked a little bit about it, or you mentioned it in my bio, that we do Ethan's Compassion Kitchen. So when I was trying to find ways to make Ethan talk and to help to make sure that his math and science lessons were sticking, we used cooking to create that connection, because that was something that A, he enjoyed food, and B, by following a recipe, you're giving your child an opportunity to finish a project and have some sense of accomplishment. So we used cooking, and then we used his voices. So I would say Ethan, and he would talk like the Swedish chef from the Muppets, and and you know, and then he'd say, you know, Chef Ethan, 1 cup, and another cup, and that makes how many cups, Ethan? 2 cups. And then if you put water in, or if you put milk in this solid, what happens? It becomes this. And when you put this cold into this environment, it becomes hot. What happens? And it evaporates. And so that's how I reinforced math and science with and for him. But then we took it a step further, because often children on the spectrum are very particular. And so he liked things to be in order. And but I needed him to have independence. And so we created spaces within the kitchen, in the bedroom, in every room in the house, so that he would be able to access things and be able to put them back where they belong. That was not something that I had to make him do. That was something that he has as a part of him. And so we organized the kitchen so that he could get his own snacks, and so that he could do all those things that would help him to be able to be like his cousins, who were his best friends. And so that was really important. And so we developed Ethan's Compassion Kitchen. It was an opportunity for us to do cooking classes with young people who are on the spectrum. It's good food for a good cause. And so cooking with and for children on the autism spectrum. And so we would prepare meals, and we would distribute the meals, and he would always want to have some extra after to give to people who might not be able to purchase those meals. And so that compassion was just something that was always there. And he always wanted to make sure that others were provided for. So we taught cooking classes, we teach cooking classes, and then we teach parents how to organize their spaces so that they can encourage that independence with their children. So that's one of the things that we did to encourage language, because he had to talk through the recipe. What do we put in there? How do we do this? And so that was important. And again, a lot of work, but worthwhile work, because you could see the difference, you could see the growth. And that's how we were working to develop those full sentences that even now, from time to time, you know, I have to say, nope, not that, this. And he takes the correction, but you just have to practice. It's just like anything else. It's practice, and it's repetitious, and it's formulaic. And for him, that worked.
Indeed. Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious, and Carla, you know, I don't know if you wanted to speak to the question or not, and that's fine if you don't. But I'll give you room to if you do want to.
No, I just like the other ladies, there was no one in my family that had autism, but I did know a few people who had children with autism, but I didn't really understand it, because I didn't really engage them a whole lot. It's like Vonetta said, you know, growing up in elementary school, we knew there were children in special education, You know, we knew they were different, they learned differently, but I didn't really understand autism. And even as an adult, I had a few friends from college who had a couple friends who had children on the autism spectrum, but I didn't engage them a whole lot, so I didn't really know. And that the one thing that I've seen and observed to be consistent is that a lot of times we isolate ourselves. Some parents isolate themselves because the support isn't there, the village isn't there, the tribe isn't there. So I love what Millicent was sharing, you know, finding your tribe. And, you know, we have been fortunate where we have found our tribe. We're adding to our tribe. But no, there was no one that in my family that I know of that had autism.
All right. No, thank you again for sharing that as well. So we have several comments and some new folks that have joined us. So I want to acknowledge the folks and then see if we can address some of the comments. So Arthur Blakely, is that Vaughn? Is that
My
a
baby.
relative of yours?
Yes, my youngest son.
Vonetta?
Yes.
Uh-oh, did we freeze?
No, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Okay, he is I called him my baby, but he's my 13-year-old, my youngest son.
Oh, nice. Okay, wonderful. And then, of course, Miss Tiffany Packer, Dr. Tiffany Packer, who is your sister and who is how I got connected to you. So thank you for being on here. And then I see Miss Marva joined us and Lynette Broxton. Thank you. And Mama Yada. Thank you all. So Marjorie had a comment or two, and she said something Millicent and Carla said just resonated with me. I have previously stated on the show I have two young boys with autism and ADHD. I recently posted online that my eldest son was nonverbal and would only use sign language. No one in my village, including family, was able to communicate with him. Once he began to use the use of single words, we intensified the therapy hours, and he is such an eloquent speaker now. Wow. All right. You all are nodding your head. So is that something that maybe you can relate to or yes?
Just the language and the lack of the ability to communicate for him was really hard. And at points, I was the only person who understood what he was saying or trying to say. And so I would have to give the words to him. And I mentioned it a little while ago, I believe, that he used to watch movies and copy the lines. And so those were the first sentences, full sentences that he used. And now we can't make him stop talking, but and I'm not playing either. So you know, one of the things that people would say is, you know, he's watching too much television, he's doing it, and that was the one thing that was comfortable for him, and that he could find an opportunity to express himself through. And so, and I mentioned it in some comments on one of your last shows, that he now he's identified what he wants to do as a career. He wants to be a voice actor. And the very sentences that he was copying to get words out, he was also imitating the sounds and the voices. And so now he has about 70, 75 different characters that he becomes at the drop of a dime. And all the voices, all the inflections, it's really amazing to see that something that someone was concerned about in terms of how we were exposing him is the very thing that became that which he could find confidence in and build hopefully a life around.
Yes, and sounds like it's now one of his superpowers.
It is one of his superpowers. It is amazing. He's had the opportunity to work at Disney World, at Epcot Center. He spent a year with the Disney College program. And there's another opportunity he has coming up yet, but we haven't found the final location yet. So I don't want to spoil his surprise for folks.
Indeed.
But he'll be able to use the things that he's been able to develop in a professional setting. And so very, very excited about that for him.
That is awesome. It's a lot of awesomeness going on this show tonight. And we talking about AUSOME, right?
Mhm.
All right. So Marjorie also had another comment. She said, people came after me stating I choose to force him to conform rather than have my family meet him where he was developmentally. My response, do you understand? I just tapped into his superpower. He has two languages when most people have one. Pouring
Mhm.
into and tapping into their gifts and their
Mhm.
natural abilities is not easy, but they are just as skilled, if not more skilled, than the rest of the world. My son did not crawl and walk, he walked. His mind looks at complicated tasks with such simplicity. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay.
When I read Marjorie's comment,
Mm-hmm.
like I have to force myself to like take a breath. Um, because I think that ties into what Millicent was saying, and finding our tribe and our village, and
Mhm.
finding people who understand where you are, people who understand the work that goes into having a child with autism or another disability. So I think it's so important that instead of criticizing one another, that we
Mhm.
are supportive of one another. And so to see just this person who is speaking two languages with or without autism, how many people can do that? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that we need to praise one another and be supportive of one another instead of being critical or thinking that somebody else should do things the way that you might do it.
Mhm.
Indeed. Yes, agreed, Vonetta. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Trisha Harris is on. Thank you for being here. She said, we knew there were children in special ed, but not autism specific. They just jumped them into a class separate from their peers. Do you know if anything has been done to change that? It seems we are still fighting the system to have a voice feel for these babies. So do any of you have any experience, I guess, with the the system, and I assume this is the educational system, in terms of knowing whether or not there is either more assessments that are now being done to determine, specifically what it is, and not just a separate class for, you know,
Mhm.
all of the students that have a developmental or learning disability or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to acknowledge that there's a difference in the children, but I think it's also important for parents, caregivers, loved ones to really learn how to advocate for your child. There are any number of times when the system, the administrators, the school, the board of education will tell you your child needs to be doing this or that, or shouldn't or can't do something.
Mhm.
And I've been in IEP meetings, and they had a prescription for what they felt like Ethan had and should be given therapies around. And I told him he doesn't have that. He doesn't have ADHD.
Mm.
You aren't doing what you need to do to make sure that he's paying attention. And you also aren't communicating with me when he's not doing the things that we know he's supposed to be doing. So I demanded that they remove ADHD from his IEP, and they were like, "But he
Mm.
won't get the services he needs." He doesn't need those services. He needs this. So
Mm.
invest in that, not in this. But it is very easy, especially if a person's not trained in identification of the differences, to lump children all into one classroom, into one space, into one set of solutions. So it's incumbent upon us to require that those systems respond individually and specifically to the needs of your children.
Mhm.
And if you need somebody to go with you, I'll go. Because
Right now.
but there are a lot of people who will do that, and I'm happy to advocate with and for you and give recommendations because everybody doesn't have the time, everybody doesn't have the vocabulary, everybody doesn't have the opportunity to do the things that I was blessed to be able to do. And so, again, as we're looking and creating that village, how do we do that? And it's by sharing from what we've learned in supportive community.
So I think you make a great point, Millicent. And I see Vonetta and Carla look like y'all want to say something, but I think that whole advocacy piece is huge. So what the question that comes to mind is how much reading, how much research have you all had to do, to kind of get a better understanding or at least attempt to try to understand what's going on with your child and what they need in order for you to advocate for them?
I know.
Go ahead, Carla.
I know myself and my husband. We were told so many times that she wouldn't do certain things, and we saw that she could do those things. So I never accepted. I've never accepted from the school board that she can't do this and she has to be this way. Now I understand she has her limitations and her challenges. So let's build around those. Let's see how we can strengthen those things that they consider weaknesses. And she is in an autism classroom, but I have a goal by the time she's in 5th grade. She's in 3rd grade now. I want her to be mainstreamed. So what I specifically told her principal and her teachers, every week I want her to spend at least 30 minutes with a buddy that is a neurotypical child. How do we find that? And they were saying, well, we're here to teach, and they weren't really concerned about her social skills. And I demanded it be put in her IEP. So every week she gets 30 minutes where there's a 3rd grader that is with her the entire school year. And we started that actually this year. She spends 30 minutes with them in a gen ed classroom because the world is not all autistic. So I don't want her to get into be comfortable feeling like she has to be in a space with just persons that are just, similar to her. I want her to be exposed to the world. I mean, we do that at home. She goes to the salon every 2 weeks. She goes to get a pedicure with me every 2 weeks. I mean, I'm intentional about exposing her to the world, and I want the same thing to happen in school. So as Millicent was saying, we have to be the voice for our children. We have to advocate for them and have others around us to help advocate for them. And my husband and I, we've even done that in church. My husband is a pastor. We have created a special needs ministry at our church because traditional worship sometimes overwhelms her. So we have space created for her and other children that may have disabilities to have worship, but we also bring them inside in the traditional congregation so that they're not always isolated. So and just creating those spaces, and that's why I was encouraged to write the book, to begin to teach that empathy and compassion and inclusion so that other people understand. And it helps, not only does it help Camille, but it helps the other children as well. Like we grew up and we saw children in special education, and we knew they were different, but we didn't really engage them. My goal is to help change that.
Wow. That's pretty neat. I've not heard of anybody that has done that at their church, having a special needs ministry. I like that. Vaughn, did you want to say something?
I was just in answering your original question, Nicole, about how many hours goes into like research and reading and learning more about autism. And I think it's just about differences in general. So many hours. Like I don't even know if I could quantify it. I remember when Maya was maybe like a few months old. And there was a lady that I know who told me, she said, I want to just keep Maya for a few hours and just give you a break. And I was like, oh, that's, so sweet of you. Thank you so much. And she just kept her for like 3 or 4 hours, but the entire time that she kept Maya, I was on the computer, like reading and researching and learning. So it's just like so much time goes into it that you learn so much. And so I think the ultimate goal is that we help other families who are experiencing the same or similar things.
Absolutely.
Mm.
So we have a lot of comments. I try to go through some of them kind of quickly. Trisha says she has a nephew who's recently diagnosed on the spectrum. He isn't talking in a conversation, but he is speaking, saying all the planets amongst other words. What can I do to help with his growth so he can become independent and self-sufficient?
So I'm curious to know how old Trisha's nephew is, but he's told you what he likes, and that's astrology. So use that as a foundation for how you can build
Okay.
on conversation.
I would
Nice.
completely, agree with that. If he's into the planets, then we are talking planets and
Yep,
every
planets.
aspect. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and give him things to touch and hold, the manipulative, to make it real for him, especially since he's 3. He has a real opportunity, though. If he's got the planets, that the world is open. And so, create the space around that. A lot of kids like dinosaurs. And so, you find them being able to use really complex sentence structure because they're saying triceratops and, whatever the other dinosaurs are, but, brontosaurus. Use that. And you'll find that he will become comfortable with talking about that which he's comfortable about. And it will, and let everybody else know that's what he's gonna be talking about, y'all. So we might need to learn about it too.
Right. No, great point. Joanne said, ironically, I met a young lady today who said her son uses a communication board and won't even try to talk. He is 8 and diagnosed with autism. All right. We got Tina on here. She said, love the alternative outlets used with your children. There's such a disconnect with how to engage with children who are just beyond the norm. Love this outlet and knowledge given. Thank you. You're welcome, Tina. Thank you. Let's see. Marjorie said, I didn't know we can incorporate this into the IEP. Thank you for the information. Yes, that was a great nugget. Lisa said, as an early childhood development educator, all my students participated in the same classroom activities, but I also provided my parents with resources in the community. All right. Let's see. Marjorie, I love the special needs ministry at church. I can recall being at a very low point, wanted to attend a service and was turned away because they could not accommodate the children's needs. Not all special needs parents isolate themselves intentionally. The lack of acceptance will do so.
Yep.
Great point.
Yep.
Lynette said, OMG, Carla, that has been one of the things on my heart. All people should feel included in houses of worship, but I've noticed so many are not set up to really be inclusive. My sister's church in Georgia has a special needs ministry. It's so amazing. Yes. All right. And Mr. Zach said, I can't describe how thankful I am for being on this call. As a 52-year-old autistic man, I am so proud of the work that each guest is doing to make the autism community better. I have only one recommendation. Make sure the IEP specifically states that your child is granted extended time for all tests. It will carry on throughout college.
And
Yes.
Zachary's point is a good one. When my son went to college, that was one of the first places we went, was to the support services department to identify what they would be able to do. And there were a number of resources that they made available, but one of the key things was understanding how much time he would need to do the things that he needed to do. And extended testing was not just something he had the opportunity to have in high school, but also once he went to college. And I was pleased that he was able to do that. I was pleased that he went to college. And so, there are a lot of things about it that really make you have to mature as a person and parent, and learn to accept what God has given you, and allow it to minister to you. So, because it can be really hard, and you do question, what did I do? What did I do wrong? What did I, did I take the wrong medicine? Did I eat the wrong things? What did I expose? What chemicals did I expose myself to? And you didn't. It's sometimes you're chosen because you're the person that God needs to do this.
Wow. Very powerful right there. Very powerful statement. But I do, again, just in listening to you all and in the comments that are coming through, believe that you all are specifically gifted for what you have been, what you have been given. That verse that talks about not getting, or he won't give you more than you can bear, right? And so, yeah, but it's just, again, amazing to hear you talk about all that. I want to just circle back to Zach. So Zach is a Tallahassee superstar. He is the academic doctor, and he actually teaches young people how to test successfully, like ACT and SAT and that sort of thing. And so, and as he has stated, he is a 52-year autistic man. But he has definitely done the work and continues to do the work to, make sure that he is functioning and being doing the best that he can to share his gifts and talents with the rest of us. So I'm grateful that he's on here with us. All right, so my mom is giving kudos to the panel and the information shared tonight. Thank you for the conversation. My Tina, she speaks solutions. She's out of the Tampa area. She said, I had that extended time option on my IEP, and it is the reason I was able to go to college and obtain both of my degrees. Yes. All right. So, again, that's one of those nuggets and takeaways tonight. So, definitely don't forget to, for those of you who are on the live, if you have children that are on the spectrum, request on their IEP to get that extended time for taking tests. All right, yeah, we got Mama Yada on, and she's giving Zach some kudos. All right, so we are a little over an hour, so thank you all for staying on with us. But I do want to give our panel, this time is going so fast, give you all an opportunity to give some closing remarks, as well as to allow folks to know how they can connect with you if you so desire to have them do so. So let's start with Vaughn.
Okay. So one of the, I guess, two quick takeaways for me, Nicole. One is to remind parents that this is a marathon, not a sprint. I feel like sometimes people get a diagnosis and they want to do like 20 different things all at the same time. So I just encourage families to pace themselves, because as we see with Zachary, he's 52 years old, living with autism. Many things happen over those years. So just pace yourself to be of support and continue to learn. And then for other families who may not be directly impacted by autism, grace is a word that I always recommend or remind people to offer to other families. So when we see a child in a grocery store who's having a meltdown, just offer that family grace or support in some way. I think is super important. And then the best way to reach me is by email, and it's vonetta@rootedtherapeuticservices.com is the best way to reach me.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Millicent.
We've talked a lot about patience and demonstrating resilience for your children, or your family members that are experiencing navigating the world in a way that's different. Give yourself the opportunity to rest and to love in spite of. Sometimes it's hard, and you really do have to find a way to find that rest. It is, you know, I recognize that the way that my son was gifted to us created the opportunity for me to be able to enjoy that at points. And I know that every parent that's experiencing raising a child with autism does not have that as an opportunity, but do try to find a way to do that, and to maintain what level of self you can, semblance of self that you can, because you can get lost in trying to be the things that your child needs for you to be. You can feel free to reach out to me via email if you just want to talk. If you want to connect, if you want some pointers from a mom's point of view, and a mom with a child who's now an adult and having to face adulthood in a world that's not always kind. So my email is millicentdwilliams@gmail.com. And if you have young ones who'd like to hear stories that Ethan has done, you can go to his YouTube page, Spectrum Storytime with Ethan. He has quite a few books there that he's read, and we're planning to upload a few more in the coming weeks. So we'd love to hear from you.
Love it, love it, love it. All right. And last but not least, Miss Carla Moultrie.
Thank you again so much for this space. Nicole, this has been great. Vonetta and Millicent, I've learned so much more just from hearing your stories and what you shared tonight. Two things that I would say. One, piggyback off of what Vonetta said, give yourself grace. You know, even other families, you know, if you see families that are going through something or a meltdown, having a child that's having a meltdown, or they see something they don't necessarily understand, give them grace, but also give yourself grace. Know that that you don't have to get it right the first time. There's no manual how to raise children in general. There's definitely no perfect manual how to raise an autistic child. A lot of things are trial and error for us. Try therapies, try everything. Whatever they say may help your child. Don't be afraid to try it. You never know how your child will respond to it. And lastly, I would say continue to find your tribe. Don't isolate yourself. I did that the first, I would say, year, after getting my daughter's diagnosis, because I just didn't understand. But just finding a tribe and that support has been beneficial to us. I mean, it has changed so much. People a lot of people don't understand, and they won't understand unless we tell them, unless we show them what our child needs. So find that tribe. As I said, my tribe is growing. I'm constantly using every opportunity I can to tell someone about autism. At church, we go to church a lot, so I have to have a tribe at church. Everyone at church has to understand. At work, I'm not afraid to share with my coworkers that I have a daughter with autism. And oftentimes people just don't understand. So I would say share, and find your tribe. If you want to find me, I am on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm Carla A. Moultrie. I am on Instagram. It's Carla A. Moultrie. And I'm also on LinkedIn. It's Carla Moultrie. Also, if you're interested in any of Camille's books, I do readings. I'm actually preparing for a book signing at Barnes & Nobles in Noonan, Georgia for May 20th from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. I'll be doing book signing. But her books are available on Amazon.com, her children's book and her coloring book. They're available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNobles.com, and BooksAMillion.com.
Awesome. Y'all, this has been really, really great. I do see two comments that I want to acknowledge. The first one is from Lynette. And Lynette said that late diagnosis in my 40s is neurodivergent. It really was an aha moment. I am grateful. I've connected with people who get me. Initially, I had regrets for not knowing sooner, but I realized I accomplished a lot with with a half full toolbox. But now, baby, with the appropriate tools, I'm building a life for me my way. Love it. Love it. Love it. And then last but not least, Miss Marjorie said, one thing I noticed across the board is almost everyone this evening has stated they did not know or engage with a person with special needs prior to having children of their own with the very challenge. I just pray that the takeaway for everyone is talk to these kids, joke
Mhm.
with them, include them. They just receive and process information uniquely. They hear you and feel your love and acceptance. You do not have to have a child with autism to support the community. I'm so grateful indeed. So thank you for sharing that, Marjorie. Again, as Marjorie has so stated, I hope that we do include them, and I hope this has caused us to be a bit more sensitive to those that we encounter that may just process and do things a little bit differently. So I want to thank the viewers. I see many of you chiming in. Thank you. I see you, Kiosha. Thank you for joining us late, but that's okay. And Nick Maddox, thank you for joining us as well. And Miss Lisa, thank you as well. And so also thank you to my illustrious panel. You all have been fabulous tonight. Awesome. You all been awesome. AUSOME. Listen, connect with them on social media in all the ways that they have expressed. If you all have found this to be helpful, let us know in the comments. Some of you have already been doing so, but let us know. Give us some hearts or something. And again, follow these ladies. Get that book. Get either the children's the book, the reading book, or the coloring book, and share that because we are trying to make folks aware. I think as has been stated, and Carla, I was going to ask you about where do you go about finding your tribe, but I think you said it in terms of you talk about autism wherever you go, and so I think you got to open your mouth. That's how you find your tribe, right? Because you never know who may be dealing with some a loved one who's on the autism spectrum as well, and so you'll find your tribe, but you gotta open your mouth and tell your story and talk about it. So again, thank y'all. For those of you who are new to Conversations with Nicole, I invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're here every Monday and Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, talking about mental health and wellness in Black and Brown communities specifically. I see you, Mr. Johnny Johnson. You can find the book on Amazon, amazon.com. Uh, awesome, awesome. AUSOM. Is it Awesome Girl?
Awesome
Awesome
girl.
Girl. Awesome Girl. So check it out, Johnny. Check it out. Check it out. Buy a couple copies and give them to somebody. Gift them to someone. All right. All right, good people. You all have a great rest of the evening, and we will see y'all next time. Bye.